You are listening to the Hammersy Brothers e-commerce podcast. Like what you hear and want to take the shortcut on your e-commerce growth? Join hundreds of brands that work with us and head over to joinhb.com. That's joinhb.com and see how we can help you further. Join our members and smash your targets and unlock the profits within your e-commerce site. Hello, Ian. How are you?
Hi, Mark. I'm very well. Joining you from half term because it's half term in the UK, and I have my makeshift studio. I've got my headphones, my AirPods.
No posh microphone
No
today.
posh. No, I feel inferior. Almost like there's a symbol of what your microphone stands for. And
it stands for power and dominance. It's like as soon as you buy yourself an expensive microphone, you've made it, haven't you? That's it.
Yeah,
that's all you need to do these days.
I think you stuck Shaw on, haven't you? You went, "Who wants the world's best microphone?" And you've stuck the label on.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, well, someone told me it was a good microphone, so I bought it.
I think I did.
You did, yeah. It did make a big difference, actually. It did make a big difference to everything. But we are here to talk about e-commerce. So we've been doing the 5 types of e-commerce businesses, and actually we've been putting the episodes on YouTube, and they've been some of our most popular episodes that we've ever done. So obviously we've hit a nerve a little bit with the subject, which is great. And just to recap the 5, today is obviously the last one because this is the 5th one. So I'll go through them and then I'll introduce the last one and you can bring it in. So the 5 are the compounding brands. These brands build long-term momentum. So like, your own supplements, those kind of things, or shampoos or moisturizers. The high-ticket one-timer, so super expensive mountain bike that people aren't going to buy 2 mountain bikes or a wedding dress. The volume retailer, such as a men's clothing company, women's clothing company, those kind of style of businesses where it's all about volume. And a need-driven supplier, which is like something's gone wrong, I need to fix it, spare parts, car batteries, that kind of style. And then the 5th one is the seasonal specialist, which we're going to talk about today. So you asked me just in the preamble how I define this, and I'd say that a seasonal specialist is a brand that does more than 80% of its revenue during a short period of time. Sometimes a lot higher than that. Sometimes they're squeezed. Think of a Christmas tree retailer. You're not going to sell many Christmas trees in July. So do you want to kind of bring it in?
Yeah. So the whole point of defining which type of e-commerce business you are is so that you can apply the right strategy to your particular e-commerce business, and so the first step of understanding that is to know what type of e-commerce business you are, because if you apply the wrong strategy to the wrong type, you can't scale. So that's why, to put some context of it, and the seasonal specialist is, I think, the really good example of this, and it's not uncommon, just to go back to that definition, that if you're doing 80% of your revenue in a short period of time, and when I would say a short period of time, we're probably talking like 2 months. I think did you say 6 weeks? I'm not sure if you said 6 weeks, but
I didn't really give a definite. I think I said 2 months, something around
so around 2 months. And actually, lots of businesses in the retail world, bricks and mortar stores have been around for a long time. This is quite common, to make their significant amount of revenue in the last in 2 months of the year, and the overall sort of simple philosophy here is that you can often take a seasonal specialist, and we'll go through some examples of businesses that we're working with right now, and how they've scaled. But the overall philosophy is that you maximize the peaks, and so rather than trying to obsess over trying to grow the revenue all year round, you tend to lean into your peaks. And it's more efficient. And we always find that we can grow the peaks more aggressively and more easily we can grow the peaks with a little bit of effort, that rather than trying to even out the troughs. And the ultimate example, which we've used before, of a seasonal specialist is a company selling Christmas trees to a consumer. You're selling Christmas trees. I mean, no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't sell a Christmas tree to an individual in July. That's an extreme example. So you have to focus on when the demand is there, and you can often take a business to the next level. And I would say that you take a seasonal specialist, you take the business to the next level in the peak. That's when we get the game changing results. Shall we talk a bit about, because we've got a few seasonal specialists that we're working with right now, some quite extreme ones.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to define a little bit about, because we work with a lot of homeware people, and I would probably, homeware companies, whilst they have a huge peak during November, December, they wouldn't necessarily be called a seasonal specialist because they do have revenue outside of that. But a lot of the playbook for seasonal specialists will apply to them as well, because if you think about it, a lot of those businesses get paid in terms of their profit during that. You can maybe say there's 80% of the profit is made during those months, almost, because the cost per acquisition goes down, the revenue per visitor goes up, the amount that people are buying during that window goes up. So I think if you're running homeware, this episode is also relevant for you as well, because you've got those such big peak times. I wouldn't say our bedding company. I wouldn't say our bedding company is a seasonal specialist at all. Like, we do better during certain times. Like, there are times of the year when people are buying more sheets and bedding and stuff like that. But we are not a seasonal specialist. We will sell, the peaks might bring us up, maybe 20, 30% on a normal month, but it's nothing as extreme as a seasonal specialist.
No. Yeah. I think if you sort of asked, anybody what kind of business they would want to run, they would say, oh, something that is consistent all year round, that, I don't have massive peaks and massive troughs, because, I want to manage my cash flow. I want to manage my stock. I want to manage my staff. I don't want to have too much demand, on my teams. It's going to, we're going to need, we want steady, consistent growth. And the problem is that's not how consumers buy. Consumers buy from certain brands and certain products very differently depending on what time of year it is, and we are simply taking advantage of that surge. And the reason that we like identifying if you're a seasonal specialist is because it's cheaper to grow during the peak season. It's cheaper. We can push the ads much more aggressively. And I mean, we're talking, we've got some seasonal specialist e-commerce brands right now in the program. There's an American brand that's selling it's apparel, it's hats, fashion. They're very, very, very seasonal. Then they're going from like $30,000 a month to nearly $1 million a month, and that's extreme. But for us to take that business, obviously the simple math is, if we double 30,000 in their out of peak month, we're going to get 60,000. But if we double the million to 2 million, that's a significant, and actually that's going to be probably easier for us to do than double the 30. So it's just easier. It's more efficient. There's just so much more appetite. We can push the ads much harder. The conversion, what actually happens is the KPI that changes is the conversion rate. The conversion often trebles, and so does the average order value. Often the average order value goes up. So effectively, we can now afford to pull the traffic lever and push the ads in a way that we could never do before. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening in the program. And so, businesses like Stormy Kromer, who's an American brand, they're an example of a seasonal specialist. Somebody like British Hampers, they come on the program where they're selling Christmas hampers, and that's an interesting story because not only I think you have two responsibilities with a business like this. Number one, you have to try to grow your peaks because it's cheaper to do so. It's much easier and much more efficient. But you also have a responsibility to reduce your fixed costs and your costs outside of your peak. And you mentioned that before the call. We were just chatting about seasonal specialists, and we were saying that that really you have two ultimate responsibilities. It's to make sure that you minimize because sometimes they're not profitable out of the peak.
Yeah.
So you really got to look at how that affects it, and we do a lot of cost restructuring. When we're working with the seasonal specialists, sometimes we have to be quite dramatic, don't we?
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple of things that we need to talk about. First of all, how we reduce the loss outside of peak, and second thing is, our message isn't necessarily just push peak, because if you're selling Christmas trees, it's basically like saying, oh, you just need to sell hard during Christmas. I mean, everybody knows that. That's obvious. But like what a traditional agency will do will treat most clients the same. So you'll be going and they'll have loads of clients. Most of them will be volume retailers, and you'll be a seasonal specialist. And they'll go, right, well, we manage the ads, and then at the end of the month, we send a report through and we say how we did and all that kind of stuff like that. And you can't run a seasonal specialist the same way you would do a volume retailer, because all that ad making, decision making needs to be done during the peak. And whoever is running the ads needs to understand not only what the ad platform is telling them, the Google ad platform and the Meta ad platform, but more importantly, what the bottom line of the business is and what's actually happening day to day at a profit level on the business and what's happening, because the business actually gives you the heartbeat of what's actually going on. And with a seasonal specialist, you need to be changing the direction daily based on what's happening at the coal face, basically. Mm-hmm. And so you can't run, or you can't expect maybe your agency to run that in the way that you'd want them to, because probably 90% of their customers are going to be are going to be volume retailers. Yeah. So that's a huge switch. It's a huge switch. And in fact, as a business owner, you can't really outsource that decision making outside of your core. You need to be doing that yourself. You need to really understand during your peak. You need to be the conductor of it, of the orchestra. You can't say the wind section, I'm just going to let them do what they want over there, and I'm going to the whatever the other sections are in orchestra are forgotten. You've got to be you've got to be the conductor of it during peak. Otherwise, it's going to go into a mess. Mm. Like nobody can see everything like you can see everything. Nobody understands everything like you can see everything. And it's such a critical period to get right, because not only are you've got to work out what to spend, you've got to work out what emails to send during peak and when you send those emails and what you do. I mean, look at Betting Envy, how much difference we can make to the revenue by sending the right emails at the right time during a peak time. It's massive. It can go from being a £10,000 day to a £30,000 day just by doing the right thing. And so, Betting Envy isn't a seasonal specialist, but let's say it was. That would go from being the difference between a £20,000 day to $1 million, something crazy. It's like, it makes such a difference. And so you've really got to be awake to that progress. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. And so those are the kind of things that we've been working with Stormy Kromer on. We've worked with them on, Be Greater Shoes is another great example of that. Yeah. He's grown his business fantastically. He's been shocking people in the group with his his peak numbers have just blown everybody out the water, and it's great actually because people go, if he can do that, then maybe I can do that as well, So that's fantastic. And he came through the initial program that we used to run called the 20K core, and he was just starting out and he wasn't even sure if he was going to be able to do something, and that's a great story. So if you get a chance to read about his business, that's a great one to go and have a look at if you're a seasonal specialist. So the other point you mentioned was how to reduce your losses during the off peak, and a couple of things we've done there. First of all, you've gone through the costs, with everybody and made sure what they should be paying and what they're not paying, and maybe bringing ads in house and removing the agency and those kind of things. Because out of peak, a lot of those ad accounts are super simple. Like they're not complicated out of peak, like super, super simple. And so you've got this agency cost with this minimum fee, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, you don't need it.
Can I just elaborate? Hang on a second. Just elaborate on that point just for a moment. On if the problem we find that an external agency makes is not only are they really expensive outside of peak because they're charging you a fixed fee. Secondly, they often cock up the peak because they don't take enough risk. They don't push hard enough, and they don't push hard enough because they don't want to take any risk, but they don't necessarily know who's a new customer and an existing customer, so they don't know what your CAC should be, and they report too late. They don't ramp up. Seasonal specialist businesses have a very specific ramp up model, so we know exactly when to ramp up before a season starts to kick, and that's not just the paid ads. That's the whole business. It's how you use email, how you start to feed in the ad the budget revenue, and they're not doing that, but also they're reporting too late, and so your agency will come to you at the end of peak and go, oh my God, great, we spent £50,000 and we got £100,000. That meant you get a ROAS of 50. Aren't we great? We got your cost of acquisition was really low, and you might go, oh yeah, well done guys, that's brilliant. But what they haven't told you is that they could have pushed 4 times harder. Because the opportunity was there, and you could have taken the business to the next level and done something game changing with it. So you're in the worst possible position. And the second thing as well is you're paying the massive commission during peak for very little, very very little, and they're like thinking this is the most the bloody gift that keeps on giving.
They're great accounts to get, because if you're on a commission on spend, they suddenly go up from nothing on their own. They sell like crazy, and the agency's sitting there going, "Well, thank you very much. So I did all that myself." Yeah.
So, Paul, sorry, I interrupted you then.
Well, no, it's just going to talk about minimizing the loss during out of season. So like taking the apparel business that we've been working with in America, like they did some out of season sales, and they were able to kind of get rid of some old stock and create a bit of anticipation and plug those profit loss gaps. And they were assuming that, oh, no one is going to buy these out of season, blah blah blah. But because they have such loyal fans, some of them did, and they were like, oh, I'd get one of those for whatever reason.
Can I make a point on that? Actually, don't mind. Is that you? In terms of creating a seasonal specialist, but in some cases, Mark and I have advised that we can create a season out of nowhere. So we've found some businesses where they have one season, and we've said, okay, well, the business really works well. And I bet you there's people listening to this now that will resonate with what I'm saying. They say, oh, when we've got an event, when we've got a sale running or an event running, everything works. Our conversion rate works, our CAC is good, our ROAS is good, we can scale, we're profitable, everything's great. But when we come out of this, everything falls flat, and we can't shift. And that's a lot of people are in that boat. And so we have on many occasions architected and created a season out of that. And there's a business that we're working with now that's the American business that's selling like needlepoint and crafting things for like stitching and knitting and
Isn't
needlepoint.
needlepoint just sewing? Just sewing.
Listen, that's blasphemy. This I made that mistake. No, it is a whole.
Needlepoint's a religion.
It's like a religion. It is. It's like a tribe. It's like it's the new kind of Protestant Catholic.
Yeah, the divide.
Trump versus the world stuff.
Let's talk about politics and religion.
Yeah, exactly. But
every time you mention the T word, right? Our podcast, we can't promote it on YouTube because it's so we should every time we mention the T word, we can't. It gets banned. Yeah, even just in passing as a joke. It's like because we can't do election and politics stuff. Yeah, it's I obviously we just keep mentioning it and it's not allowed to promote it. So annoying.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Well, that going back that needlepoint business, they had like these two. They had one two very peak seasons. And we're like, oh, what's happening there? Like, what happens? Why is May got a massive jump and then November's got a massive jump? And they go, oh, we do an event. Okay, well, why don't we do another event? Why don't we do a third one? Because we can architect the season because that is not too much. And if you look at the big volume, there's similarities to a volume retailer here in the season, especially. So if you look at the fashion brands, they tend to have 4 seasons. They have a spring summer launch, a spring summer sale, an autumn winter launch, and an autumn winter sale, and they're their big sort of peaks. So we can create a season. It isn't just. I think the exception is if you're selling Christmas stuff or Be Greater shoes. He's mainly doing it for school shoes, going back to So
back
he's
to
got
school.
he's the true definition of a seasonal specialist because he can really lean hard.
Another one was Love Hearts. Love Hearts Swizzles Matlow we worked with for years, and they sold like Valentine's gifts, and it was just kind of went from nothing to massive and then kind of dipped down again. And then there's there's the brownie guy in America, and he has a few seasons where people eat chocolate. He has Easter and he has Christmas, doesn't he? Really, those are the two big things.
Yeah,
and
people like Baked by Melissa is an example of that, isn't? She's doing very seasonal. I mean, and also people like Cox and Cox. Cox and Cox have a longer season, but they really need to make the profit during that. The run up to Christmas and January sales.
Absolutely, it's if they don't, that can kill them, can't they? Because they build up to it completely, and they have to buy stock for it and everything that and they're if it doesn't go right, they can get into trouble because everything's riding on it.
Guys like Pharmasons and Organic Butchery and people like that we've worked with, I think it's quite. When I see an e-commerce business that has no seasonality, I'm much more shocked. I'm much more surprised. Much rarer. And we actually really like seasonal specialists because because you can often make smaller tweaks that have quite a dramatic effect.
There's usually a lot of inefficiency during the peak that you can mine, and I think it's just because a lot of people aren't used to running seasonal specialists. They come at it from a volume retailer point of view, and therefore you look at it like that. You go, "Oh, great, we're having a good month," but you don't realize it is the month, and that's the different switch in terms of if you think about that month as actually being the whole year and the profit for the whole year. Then it switches your mindset and realizes where your work needs to be and what you need to be doing on it. And then there's a lot of techniques to get right during that peak that will make a big difference to everything. And even like thinking about the hype for it as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good example. For example, that brings me on to the next point. So somebody like Be Greater, shoes, and I hope I hope he doesn't mind us talking openly about him, because I mean he's a good friend of ours now. But he knew the height. He knew the season was coming, so he was very cleverly getting emails. He was getting
Mm.
emails, building up. So getting emails, building, and he had a very, very good email acquisition hook. An email acquisition hook is from the, we teach people what the right email acquisition play is for each type of e-commerce business. And he had a very, very good effective one. He was getting about 22% of email of traffic, of not of
Mm.
site, like 22% of all his email he was getting. So he was building these like hundreds of thousands of email addresses of prospects in the 2 to 3 months before his main season landed. So when he went into his big season, he'd got like 300,000 email prospects ready that he knew was the right market, the right customer, at the right time. And he just went boom,
Mm.
and it just lit up. And so it wasn't just we could pull the ad lever, which we also could because the demand was there, but we also had this huge like
Yeah.
audience that we just launched into with SMS as well, and that because we've been capturing those all on the run up to the season, and that just kind of turbocharged it. So there's techniques like that seasonal specialists need. So you've got to be thinking about it in advance. You've got to be
Mm.
thinking about it much earlier on about how
Yeah.
you can maximize the peak, and that was game changing. It
Yeah.
really
And this
was.
just for those people on our programs, if you're listening to this and you are on the program and you want to, or you are a seasonal specialist, the two workshops that you want to look at is the email capture workshop, because that really primes the pump, and also the SMS workshop as well. The SMS workshop we did recently. Those two are really important, and of course the one I did very recently, which was the Black Friday workshop, which tells you
Mm.
all the sequences you're going to need, how you should hype, how you shouldn't hype, how you should think about the weekends in between, everything just like kind of laid out. And if you can actually take the Black Friday workshop and you could apply it to Easter if that's your
Mm.
peak, or you could
Or
you could apply
Valentine's
it to
Day.
whatever, or Valentine's Day, whatever
Yeah.
your peak is. You could just
Father's
say,
Day.
right, well, this is our peak
Yeah.
playbook, and just use that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's cool. That's really good advice. And obviously know your numbers. The other workshop that you should all watch is,
absolutely.
is
Yeah.
know your numbers. You need to know exactly in the drop by drop of our number sheet, you know exactly what your new customer ROAS is for that time, whether or not you can, is it higher or lower? Should you spend more?
Mm.
Should you spend less? And you should do that daily. And that's key,
Yeah,
because you're right
particularly
in the middle of the storm.
if you're starting out and you've been filling out your number sheet and you've not got the ROAS that you want to get, and then it's almost like the first time it starts to happen and starts to get it right, you don't quite believe it, but actually that's the time when you've got to lean in quickly and you've got to go big. And so
Mm.
a lot of people kind of go, I'll see lots of people number sheet and I go, oh, hang on a minute, for 3 months you've been kind of hitting your numbers. What are you doing? And they go, oh, I was just thought it was a fluke. I didn't think it was. It's like, no, this is your
Yeah.
time. Go for
Do you
it,
know
because
what? Do you know what?
you can grow fast.
The reason why people struggle with this traditionally, and they can't quite believe what's the numbers that's happening in front of them, is because marketing and retail business has been taught the same way for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it used to be, it's all everybody's knowledge about marketing and retailing is based upon a physical bricks and mortar store, and the physical bricks and mortar store was fixed. Like you let's say you have a shop in a town, and you can't do anything about the demand. It's either there or it isn't, right? If you get really busy on a particular day in your shoe shop, in Longton, uh, you great, you'll take it, but you're sitting back waiting for it. Whereas in e-commerce, you can open another store and another store and another store and another store overnight. But hour by hour, you can open another store and open another store until you've got stores nationwide in every town and then you can scale back again.
Yeah.
You can go right back to nothing.
You can have store in everybody's town on Saturday and Sunday, and by Monday you can have them all closed.
Yeah.
I know you don't.
And that's the power of being a seasonal specialist, knowing how to do that and ramp it up. And that's why this is completely new. No industry has done this before. There was no marketing or technique. Direct mail was maybe the closest, but that's still, how much should we mail? Oh, I don't know. 100,000.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's
I don't know.
pretty
Let's
planned
just go.
in 6 months in advance.
This is the first industry that this has ever happened, that you've got the ability to just go whoosh, ramp up and ramp down, in such a short period. And which is why no marketer or no retailer will ever talk to you about it like this. This is unique to our industry. There you go.
Who knows what they teach at universities these days on marketing? They certainly didn't.
It'll be about
I remember doing marketing
AI.
Yeah. Well,
Do you know
Ben's,
what?
my son's about to go
asked-
to university, and he's gonna learn all this kind of stuff. I'll see what they're teaching.
We've got to do a workshop on how we use AI, because everyone's asking me about it, and so we can't, because obviously we are well known for cutting through the bullshit of the buzzwords that are out there, and I'm not saying it's a buzzword, but I'm saying it is on every podcaster's topic about how you use AI, how you influence AI, how you get in the chat GPT's recommended, and everybody's asking us about it, and so we're going to have to talk about it. So that'll be a workshop that's coming up. So
good.
Anyway, on that bombshell.
Yeah, thank you very much. You better go back to your house that's not working. No oven's not working.
Got no heating.
Blew up his house.
And no power. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
See you guys.